We're going to focus on these two books, The Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease, because they have been scientifically shown to help people with heart disease. There's a lot of other books out. They say a lot of other things. People ask me about fish. People ask me about the other things. But those studies for reversing heart disease were pretty much plant-based from these two doctors. So that's what I'm going to talk about. There are a couple rules for Dr. Russellston, so we're going to kind of go over them. No animal products, or like no poultry, no fish, no beef, no pig. The only animal product is honey, and that's just limited amounts. So this isn't vegan per se, because vegans are no honey or no other animal products, but this is whole food and plant-based. No oil, and we're gonna go into why in a little bit. No nuts except for milk, like nut milks, because they're high in fat. It's not that oils, I mean, it's not that nuts are bad for you. They have some really good properties, and a little tiny bit of them are a good thing. But how many times do we do a tiny bit, right? It's a handful here, handful there. And next thing you know, we've had, 500 calories, mostly fat, of nuts. This is a very low fat diet, which we'll explain. Also, no fruit juice, so don't drink fruit juice because it spikes blood sugar. Eat the whole thing. You'll get more fiber, and it'll be more filling if you eat the whole thing. Also, small amounts of added sugar. Sugar adds extra calories. Unless you're a long distance runner, probably don't need that extra sugar. And they recommend no more or less than 5% of your calories coming from sugar. So that's not very much. And that's maple syrup, honey, brown sugar, organic sugar, anything like that. Any added sugar. What doesn't count is like your fruits, your whole fruits. No caffeinated coffee for those with heart disease and cholesterol problems, because it has been shown to increase your cholesterol for some people, not for everybody. And it also can have effect on the endothelial cells, which we'll talk about. Limit soy due to a high fat content, and only 100% whole grains. No avocados or coconut because of the saturated fat content. The goal is to eat at least 6 servings of greens a day for those that are trying to reverse heart disease, like my dad. He was eating 6 servings of greens every single day. It was like his medication. He's like, hey, time to take my medication. I got to go do that. Eat beans, kidney beans, garbanzo beans, lentils, all kinds. Supplements, B12, possibly D, and a tablespoon of flax a day. So what else is left anyways, right? It's like, oh, it could be boring to eat. I don't know. Am I going to just eat tree bark, right? You actually can eat tree bark, but we're not going to go there. So some people say it's easier to change a person's religion than change his diet, Margaret Mead said. And I think that's probably sadly true for a lot of people. So let's look at what a whole food plant-based diet looks like, shall we? So let's get some pictures, kind of get in our minds that it's doable. We can do this, and it doesn't look bad. There can be some things that are kind of look familiar to us. So let's look. What about apple spiced oats? This is from Fat Free Vegan. There are tons of different websites out there right now. When I first started, there was hardly anything. It was difficult to find a lot of good recipes. But now you just type in whole food plant-based diet and a ton of things will show up. And so it's really, really a lot easier than it used to be. So Fat Free Vegan, really, really good website. What about Tofu Scramble? Doesn't it look pretty? It looks like scrambled eggs. And there's fries in the back there, sweet potato, baked oven fried. Ketchup on it, you don't have to, but they taste really good. And it looks like something that you've had before, and it's comforting, it tastes good. Old-fashioned oats, super easy to find. Shredded wheat, not the sugar kind, but the shredded wheat is good. Kashi cereal. Kashi makes a ton of different things, but their nuggets are the ones that don't have any oil in it. And so that one's an okay food. Most of the foods that I get, I don't go anyplace special to get them. I just go to Mark's and Aldi's, Farmer's Market, local grocery store, and sometimes in the health food store. But that's all. I don't go far away to get anything or have to order tons of things online. It's just simple, real food. Ezekiel 9 also makes a Kashi type of like cereal. And of course, grape nuts is good as well and adds some texture. Now, those things, cereals in and of themselves, taste kind of boring, right? They don't taste good. You usually want to add sugar to them, right? You want to add sugar or some kind of flavor. But what about adding fruit instead? How about adding fruit for our sweetness? And we'll also add fiber to it as well as nutrients. And you can get frozen berries and fruit or fresh if they're available. Other things, flaxseed. They recommend flaxseed. Flax is, you can get it anywhere. Mark's has it. Aldi's has it. Every single grocery store now carries flaxseed. You want to make sure that you grind it because you can't absorb the omega-3 fatty acids unless you grind it. So grind it. Also the nut milks and oat milk. They're easy to find. You want to look for ones that don't have oil in it. Some oat milks have oil in it. And you don't want to get ones with sugar in it either. So no oil and no sugar is what you want to look for in your oat or soy or almond or your nut-based beverages. So what are some other things? It can be simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. You can put greens with peppers in it and some bean sprouts and beans together and put some sriracha sauce on it. You can be simple or you can be complicated. It depends on what you want. And this is like a chili. And instead of putting it in a piece of bread, you could just put it on a romaine leaf and eat it that way. Other chilies, there's super easy to put together. They freeze well. And putting chili on top of a sweet potato is amazing. If you haven't tried that before, you got to try it. Also salsa on a sweet potato with some black beans, really, really good. It'll change it up. Instant pot vegetable soup, like I said, fat-free vegan are where a lot of these recipes come from. Veggie burgers, they're easy to make and freeze. So if you make them ahead, freeze a bunch of them and then just pop them out, and you can use them as burgers. You can crumble them and put them in other types of meals. Just substitute, instead of hamburger, you can use your veggie burger. Word of caution, a lot of the veggie burgers that are on the market do have some animal products in them as well as oil. So lots of different choices to make. The handout, Julie, did you get the handout that I emailed you?
Yes, and I'll email that to everyone afterwards.
Okay, on there I have a lot of different websites that you can go to for different recipes. The Giroudi family is now one of my favorite ones, and she has a super easy oat burger that is really good and freezes really well. Pizza. A lot of people crave pizza. Well, how about taking just a oil-free whole grain pita bread and using that as your crust? And then you can put on hummus if you want to. You could put on different things and either have it cold or you could have it hot as well and bake it. So there's ways of getting something that looks familiar to you and that you like and making it taste better. Whole grains are easy to find as well. You can find them pretty much everywhere. Kales, now that the farmer's market, we were talking about the farmer's market earlier, are super easy to get. And these things last a long time. I mean, they will last in your refrigerator for several weeks, not just for 1 week. When I get them, I usually strip the harder, more fibrous inner part off, chop them up, and have them all washed first. But they last for a very long time in your refrigerator. This is Ann Esselstyn and I stripping our kale at a conference. You can also get kale um, at the Walmart. You can easily get kale pretty much anywhere. I eat a lot of kale. This one's my favorite one from Ann Esselstyn. It's just an open face sandwich. You get that rye bread that looks like a brick, like you could hurt somebody, and you like always go buy it in the grocery store and say, I wonder what that's for. It's really good, actually. If you take that and toast it, it has to be toasted. If it's not toasted, it's disgusting. But if you toast it, it turns into this chewy, wonderful flavored bread. Then you add hummus to it and really, really thinly sliced lemons, and then your cooked kale with lemon juice and lemon zest. And it is really, really good. Beans are easy to find. You can get salt-free beans, you can get other beans, or I usually just have dried beans and soak them overnight and then cook them in my Instant Pot, and they freeze easy as well. Super cheap, and then you can control if they have salt or not. Also, vegetables are very easy to find frozen. I find that if you don't want to do any chopping, you just don't feel like it, you can just get frozen vegetables, keep your freezer stocked with it, and then you pull it out and just, you don't have to wash, you don't have to chop, you just dump it in your recipe and you're good to go. Sometimes I'll just bring like steamed vegetables to work, and by the time I am here, like I'll take the veggies, the frozen veggies, put them in a container, bring them here. By the time it's time for lunch, they're thawed, and I just need to microwave them a little bit, put a little bit of sauce on it, sriracha or Bragg's liquid aminos, which we'll go over, and I'm done. Good. So what to put on our stuff? Sriracha sauce, tamari. Tamari is in a lot of the recipes, and I just thought I'd take a picture of it and what it's usually around in the grocery stores. It's a lower sodium soy sauce type of a product, and you just might see that in the recipes, but that's what that is. Another thing that I really, really love is Cholula sauce. It's a hot sauce, but it doesn't have that sour taste that other hot sauces have. It just has a nice, clean heat to it. Ezekiel 9 has a tortilla that you can get. It's usually in the freezer section of grocery stores or health food stores. So if you want something to do a wrap and you are missing a wrap, this is a good go-to. Makes a really great cracker too if you stick it in the microwave, or you can bake it as well. I don't like it raw, like just take it out and roll something up, because it's too hard. It needs to be heated up and softened a little bit. You know how they do at Chipotle where they kind of steam it a little bit? That's kind of what needs to be done with that. Or put your stuff in it, wrap it, and put it in a panini baker just to kind of get it hot and grilled a little bit. And it's really good that way. Hummus. Hummus is basically ground chickpeas with garlic and other flavorings in them. You can get no oil ones. It's difficult to get no oil ones. This one is from Raisin Rack. It's called Amir, and it says no oil free on those. And they're very good, but it's super easy to make, and there's all kinds of recipes out there, and it freezes as well. So if you make a big batch, you can freeze it, but I pretty much eat it every day, so I go through a lot of it. Tofu ranch dip. So I like to, when I'm taking things to a party, take things that I know look familiar to people and that they'll try and not think, oh my goodness, it's vegan, or no, it's, it's that whole food plant-based thing. No, this is tofu that has the ranch seasoning in it. And if you had that out at a party, you would never think that it's not ranch dressing, and it tastes good. And that way you're getting more nutrition in without all that extra fat. Greens are easy to find everywhere. This is just a snapshot at Mark's. You have all kinds of real fresh greens to get. What do you put on those greens? Well, we can't put lots of those salad dressings on it. So how about some nice types of vinegars? My favorite vinegars are at Mott's bulk food store in Louisville. It's Mott's Greenhouse bulk food store. I was just there last week, and I got, my favorite one is the peach balsamic vinegar. It is amazing. That, what else did I get? Fig, I got fig. And there's just so many, and you can taste them before, you can try before you buy. So I would highly recommend going out there and doing some sampling and getting a bunch of that vinegar because it is wonderful. Other things, lasagna, doesn't that look good? With butternut squash, you can also use sweet potatoes in there. It just makes a nice creamy to a lasagna. So layering that in your lasagna instead of the cheese. Vegetable casserole, and that's another thing. Instead of a lasagna, if you're craving like an Italian lasagna type thing, this one is a good one to go. The Happy Herbivore has a recipe for for green bean casserole. A lot of us grew up with green bean casserole at Thanksgiving, and we know that it's not the healthiest for us. It's pretty high in calories, right? And it's definitely not the best option. So I want you to look at the difference between the calories in the traditional on the left and the calories of the healthified Happy Herbivore one on the right. So the first one, it's only a 3/4 cup serving size, whereas the one on the right is a whole cup. And look at the calories. You can eat, twice as much of the healthier green bean casserole, for about the same amount of calories, twice as much as you can with the other one. And you get so much more nutrition in it. So this is why when you eat this way, you'll naturally lose weight and get more nutrition in because it's so much less calories and it's a lot of volume. So you feel full and satisfied and you don't have to worry about all that calorie counting or anything like that. White bean and garlic stew, again from the Fat-Free Vegan. Pastas, whole grain pastas are super easy to find. You can pretty much find them anywhere. And I think this is taken at my favorite store, Mark's. Bragg's organic pasta sauce. Pasta sauces are, I'm not gonna lie, they're a little bit difficult to find ones with no oil. And it's even harder to find ones with no sugar in them. So I usually make my own. Last year, I think I found some at Aldi's that had no sugar, low salt, and no oil. And I think I bought almost all of the cans there. But they're difficult to find, not gonna lie. So you might need to be making more of that type of thing yourself. Another one is Walnut Acres, no added salt, tomato, basil. They have a lot of different types of it, this brand does, but this is the only variety that they have that doesn't have oil in it. You can get tons of types of tomato bases, diced, no added salt, no oil, just the plain tomatoes if you don't want to do all that chopping yourself. Salsas. Salsas are very easy to find. Most of them don't have any oil in it. Most of them don't have any sugar in it. The only bad part for some people are they do have salt in them and a fair amount of sodium. So if you have high blood pressure, that might be an issue for you. So what I recommend is I take my favorite salsa and then a diced tomato, have any salt to it, and I add the no added salt diced tomatoes to my already made up salsa. And then you've halved your sodium right there. So you didn't have to do anything. You had to open 2 cans, put no added salt in with your other thing, and now you've just reduced your sodium by half. And that's a really quick, easy way to do it if you don't want to do chopping and all that stuff. Sodium in vegetable broth. Vegetable broth is very, very easy to find, but beware of the sodium content in some of it. So this is Pacific brand, and the sodium in this is 135 milligrams per cup, which isn't terrible. So let's look at Rachel Ray's, 480 milligrams per cup, buyer beware. This one is Swanson's, I think, and it is 800 milligrams per cup. It's super, super high in sodium. So buyer beware. Just because it looks healthy, you have to look at the label and make sure that it's okay with your diet requirements. As far as whole grains and whole and beans and things, Bob's Red Mill has a lot of different things. Not everything is recommended from this diet. Just because it's gluten-free doesn't make it healthy. Just because, you know, it's organic doesn't necessarily make it healthy. So just be aware that this is a good brand, but everything that they sell is not compliant with the diet. A really amazing bread is Berlin Bakery bread. You can get this at health food stores in the freezer section. It will run you about $6 a loaf, which means you won't probably eat very much of it, which might be a good thing. But it's really, really good. It's made with spelt. But you can get cheaper. You can get cheaper ones at Mark's. The one on the right is Alvarado Street, and that's at Mark's, at least my Mark's in Perry Township. But it's not where the bread is. It's right by the front door where the donuts are for some reason or other. I don't know why, but that's where it is at Mark's. You can also get good bread at Aldi's. They have a sprouted grain, 7-grain bread, and in the freezer section at Raisin Rack. And this is just the sprouted bread at Aldi's on the left versus brown berries. The brown berry one does have added oil to it, as well as cultured wheat flour. So that's not 100% whole wheat, although the first ingredient is whole wheat. So that is a better choice than some, but it's not the best choice. So snacks, what are we gonna eat for snacks? My favorite snack is air pop popcorn with, you don't wanna eat it plain because it's kind of boring, right? You spray Bragg's liquid aminos on it, and it comes in a little spray bottle. And Bragg's liquid aminos is a soy product. It's kind of like soy sauce. And I also put nutritional yeast on it. So that's on the bottom shelf there. It says nutritional yeast flakes. It is not the same thing as yeast that you make bread with. It's a savory type of a thing. It comes in a flake form, not a granular form. And it just adds a nice savory flavor to your food. Also crackers. Mary's Gone crackers is a good choice, and you can have that with hummus. Let's compare like the Ritz cracker with the Mary's Gone cracker. They both have about the same serving size, 30 grams, and about 130, 140 calories. So about the calorie per calorie, it's about the same. Fat grams. The Mary's Gone crackers has a little bit more fat, but let's look at the ingredients. The ingredients in the Ritz cracker is organic wheat flour. That means it is white flour. It is not whole grain flour. The next thing is oil and then sugar. So are any of those things whole? No, those are not something that we want. So not a good idea. Whereas the other one, Mary's Gone crackers, has organic brown rice and quinoa and flax. So it's getting its fat from the flax and some sesame seeds as well. So it is it's a much more whole food. It's better for you. It's going to do something for you, for your calories. They also have whole wheat matzah and salsas. You can get, I love fruit salsas in the summer. Mango, throw some mango in your salsa. Fresh lime is really good too. It's difficult though to find tortilla chips that don't have oil in it. I've looked and looked and looked. Every once in a while, I'll see some that don't have oil in it. So I make my own. And here's how I do. I take the tortillas. On the bottom, it says flour, but I use the corn tortillas that are soft and pliable. They're not crispy. So you take those and you put them on a cookie sheet on parchment, and you just slice them in about 1.5 inch, 2-inch slices, and bake them. Bake them at 350 for 10 to 15 minutes. It just depends. You got to keep an eye on it, and until they're crispy. And they work wonderful as a dipper for your salsas. So if you need something crunchy, that's a great option. Dessert. Yonanas. has this machine that takes frozen bananas and makes them into something that tastes like soft serve ice cream. So it's wonderful. It is, kids love it. You can add cocoa powder to it, so it's chocolate. You can add other kinds of fruit to it to give it a different taste. Very, very good. If you have a high-speed blender like a Blend Tech or a Vitamix, you can make it in that. But if you don't, these are wonderful as well. The Yonanas are great. If you don't like to cook and it just takes too much time, you can still do this. Jeff Novick is a registered dietitian who has done this program for years and years. He raised 2 kids on it too, where you take a few ingredients and all you need is a pot on your stove, a scissors to open the package, a can opener, and a spoon. And that's all you need. And he gives you a whole bunch of different recipes to make that don't take very much time and are very inexpensive. So Jeff Novick Fast Food is a good resource. So what's a healthy food? And how do you know it's a healthy food? Well, can we believe what is on the front of the label? Jeff Novick also gives a talk about what's the healthiest food. And this part of it is based on what he has said. And so I'm copying some of the stuff he does. But usually when they're trying to sell you something like Kellogg's is trying to sell you this protein bar because it has protein to help you stay on track. What do we know about protein? Protein is essential, right? It's an essential thing that we need to have for us, for our health. And so protein is like front and center in this, and it looks so good. It talks about protein and fiber, and there's only 110 calories in it, right? So is this healthy? Well, I don't know. Let's check it out. First, how much protein do we need? Do we even need a lot of protein? Or maybe we're getting too much protein. Is too much of a good thing, a bad thing? A lot of times it is. So the recommended amount of protein is 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight or 0.36 grams per pound. So if you weigh 150 pounds, you need about 54 grams of protein. Do Americans get enough protein? Well, this is a survey, and I believe this was published in 2020, so it's pretty recent. It was back from 2016, but it takes a while to collect all that data. And it says that the average protein intake of adults on any given day is fine. 82 grams of protein for males and 63 grams of protein for females. So for people that are over 60. So it looks like people are pretty much getting enough protein if they're getting enough calories. But what are we deficient in? What is Americans deficient in? They're deficient in fiber. 97% of Americans do not get the recommended amount of fiber. And the recommended amount is like 25 grams a day. So fiber is super important. A lot of people think, oh, fiber, that's just for helping me go to the bathroom, right? But no, fiber does so much more than that. Studies show that people that eat more fiber, the more fiber a person eats, the less disease that they have. And these are studies that are about metabolic syndrome, diabetes, obesity, cardiovascular diseases, some cancers, high cholesterol, high blood pressure. All of these things are inversely, the more fiber you eat, the less of these diseases that you have. So if 97% of Americans are not getting enough fiber, this is a nutrient of concern. A lot of people are concerned about their protein, but it sounds like we should be more concerned about getting our fiber in our diet. And why aren't we getting that fiber? Well, 96% of people don't eat their beans. About 89% of people don't eat the recommended amounts of vegetables. And almost 80% of people don't eat the recommended amount of fruit. So if we're not eating whole foods, we're not getting our fiber. fiber only comes in plant foods. You can have the toughest beef jerky ever, and there is no fiber in it. So fiber is only in plant foods. Let's talk about fat, shall we? Let's talk about some requirements, things that we need to limit, things that we need to get enough of in this diet. So first of all, fat. How much fat do we need in our diet anyway? Well, we need at least 3% of our calories to come from essential fatty acids. Essential means you have to eat it. Your body doesn't manufacture it. You have to somehow get it from your food. And there are only two amino acids, fatty acids that you need to supplement, to take in. And those are omega-3s and omega-6s. Those are the only ones that are essential. They occur naturally in foods, but the average American takes in about 33% of their calories from fat. They take in lots of extra. So what is recommended? If we need 3% just to survive, to be essential, what's the recommendation? Well, there's two camps. You have the low fat, which is Dr. Dean Ornish and Dr. Esselstyn. Both of them did the prevent and reverse studies on low fat diets, and also Dr. McDougall out of California as well. Then there are other doctors that are on board as well, but I only have so much room on my slide. There also is the moderate to high fat camp, and that's anywhere between 20 to 35% of your calories from fat. This is the Heart Association, the American Dietetic Association, the Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute, and the USDA. They all say you should limit your fat content to 20 to 35% of your calories to come from fat. So when we're looking at our labels, because we're going to be doing some food label reading, we need to keep our calories from fat around less than 20%. And you're like, well, wait a second. I just said I should be less than 10%, right? Am I talking out of both sides of my mouth? Well, we're eating, most of the foods we're going to be eating don't have a label. The vegetables and everything, if we're getting them from the farmer's market, don't have a label. These are things that we're adding to that food. So if it's a packaged food, the rule of thumb is to keep the calories from fat less than 20%. That's the rule of thumb. It helps us limit our unhealthy fats and also limit our calorie density. Also, omega-3 to 6 ratio. It should be ideally 4 omega-6s, 4 parts of that to 1 omega-3s. And that ratio is important because studies that have been done show that it helps secondary prevention of cardiovascular disease. I'm going to have to scoot over so I can read those. It helps reduce secondary cardiovascular disease by 70%. You have a ratio of 4 to 1. And it also helps reduce rectal cancer as well as other cancers. So ratio is important. Some people say, well, what if I just take a ton of supplements, right? Dr. Oz is really big on krill oil, I believe it is, on taking that, a whole bunch of that. And then if I have tons of omega-3s, it's going to balance me out, right? Well, we have the same enzyme that breaks down our omega-3s and our omega-6s. And if you have tons of omega-6s, you're using up all that enzyme trying to convert your, to process your omega-6s, and you're not going to have enough to process your omega-3s. So excessive omega-6s thwarts the benefits, the health benefits of omega-3s. So no oils. This is usually when we think of oils, we think of, MUFAs, PUFAs, and they have like one thing. For example, usually people say olive oil is really good because it has omega-3s. Is that what y'all thought? Omega-3 is great. Olive oil is super awesome. Well, let's see what percentage of the fat from olive oil actually is omega-3s. And those are in orange. 1% of the calories from olive oil comes from omega-3, right? The majority of it comes from omega-9, which is a non-essential fatty acid. and then 9% comes from omega-6. Omega-6s are super easy to find, so you don't have to go hunting for those. Those are pretty much everywhere. So not really a good choice. All oils and fats have a combination of different types of oils in them, of fats in them, I should say. Dr. Esselstyn likes to say, if you have coronary artery disease, that is like this inflammation, like this fire burning in your arteries, this smoldering cauldron of things that can happen and cause this disease to happen and clog up your arteries. If you had a house that was on fire, would you put gas on it? No, you wouldn't put gas on. What about just a tablespoon of gas? No, you want to squelch the fire. You want to put out the fire. That's the whole point. And so how do you put out the fire in your arteries? By low fat, whole food, plant-based diet, and physical exercise and stress reduction and stopping smoking and all the other risk factors for heart disease. That's how you put that fire out. So if you have coronary artery disease, that's the goal, putting the fire out. If you don't have coronary artery disease, then that's a different story. You wouldn't have to be as vigilant with this diet. If you're just trying to have an overall healthy diet, you still want to eat a little bit of oil, you still want to have a little bit of chicken, you still want to do that, fine, wonderful. I think that's a great thing. But are you getting your vegetables in? Are you getting your other whole foods in? That's what my focus is. But a lot of the people I talk with, like my dad, he's trying to reverse something that's already in there. It's really bad. So he has to be super, super strict. How are we going to get our omega-3s? Those are a little bit difficult to get. Well, Dr. Esselstyn recommends 1 to 2 tablespoons of ground flax meal a day. And you can get that. You have to grind it up or buy it ground. And I usually put mine in my cereal or add it to different things. Dr. Dean Ornish does recommend that or fish oil supplements. Better would be a type of marine algae or plankton or something like that. He does recommend 2 to 4 grams of an omega-3 supplement per day. And so that's where those two doctors vary in their recommendations. So why no meat? So why no meat? Well, flow-mediated dilatation tests, that is where you take a ultrasound probe and you measure your brachial artery in your arm to see how big around it is. And then you stop the flow of blood to your arm for about 5 minutes. Put a blood pressure cuff on, squeeze the arm, no blood flow for 5 minutes, and then you open it up and you see how much that artery dilates. That is an indication how well your endothelial cells are working, which lines your arteries. Your endothelial cells, when functioning properly, release a substance called nitric oxide, which is a very potent vasodilator, which you can see would be very important for anybody that has heart disease, like my dad. So if he is healing and those endothelial cells are functioning, now when he's walking, he has vasodilation. He gets improved circulation to his heart muscle, which reduces his angina. So his angina threshold is now higher, so he can do a lot more before he has any discomfort and has to stop. So studies done on this flow-mediated dilatation were done on the Atkins diet, and that really shows reduced flow, and the whole food plant-based diet showed the best flow. Whereas the South Beach diet, which is a decent diet, it's mostly vegetables and low-fat types of animal products, so it's a pretty good diet, more like the Mediterranean type diet. It still didn't show as good of vasodilatation as blood flow as the whole food plant-based diet did. So that's number one reason. The other two reason is studies done on TMAO. These were done a few years ago at the Cleveland Clinic. It is where people ingested carnitine and choline from animal products, and when they ate them, their gut bacteria produced a substance that went to the liver called TMAO. Trimethylamine is what that is. Trimethylamine then was converted by the liver into TMAO, trimethylamine oxide, which caused atherosclerosis. So it caused that process of coronary artery disease. Salt recommendations. For overall, salt recommendations are less than 2,300 milligrams a day. That's the average Joe should be having less than that a day. There are a few people that need a little bit more salt, and that depends on, it depends. But for the average person, that's what you need. Some people need less if they have really bad heart failure, but average 2,300 milligrams. Most of the salt is from processed foods. We have it naturally occurring too because we need a certain amount of salt in our diet as well. And it's naturally in food. If you eat fruits, vegetables, whole grains, it'll be there. Ever eat celery? Kind of tastes salty, right? If you look at natural vegetable stock that has no added salt, it's still going to have sodium in it because there is sodium still naturally occurring in your food. But most of it is from processed foods. Not a lot is added at the table. So sodium, you're allowed about 2,000 calories and you're allowed about 2,000 milligrams of sodium per day. So do you see the ratio? You're allowed about a 1-to-1 ratio of sodium and calories per day. So when I look at a label, I say, okay, this has 100 calories in it. So that means I'm allowed about 100 milligrams of sodium. The exception to that are condiments because they're going to be high in sodium. You're not going to use a lot of ketchup or mustard or whatever, hopefully, but calorie and sodium milligrams aren't going to be this ratio. So those are the exception to the rule. So let's look at a label, all right? Let's look at the label for fat and let's look at it for sodium. First of all, there are 220 calories per serving, and our rule of thumb is we're allowed to have about 20% of those calories to come from fat, which would be, what, 44 grams, calories from fat, I should say. And this only has 10, so that meets our requirements, less than 20%. Then we'll look at our sodium. Our sodium is 5 milligrams, which is really low. So 220 and 5. So way under our 1-to-1 ratio. So say my husband came back with a different box because he didn't want to flavor it or something. So he got one that was already flavored. Whenever you buy prepared foods that are already flavored, buyer beware, because it's going to probably have a lot more salt in it and probably some oil in it if it's your frozen veggies or something. This one has 190 calories from just calories per serving, only 5 calories from fat, so it's still under 20%. But look at the sodium, 670 milligrams of sodium. It's way more than a 1-to-1 ratio. And keep in mind, this is one serving or 1 cup prepared. If our limit is 2,300 milligrams, that is a giant chunk of it just for one little side dish. So not a good option to have that. Carbohydrates. It drives me nuts when people say, well, that has too many carbs. Nope, can't have an apple, too many carbs. Oh, I'm cutting my carbs. I think everybody's carbophobic. Well, we need carbs, but natural carbs. There's a total difference between processed carbs and whole food carbs. So what I'm talking about is unrefined, unprocessed, as grown in nature or close to it. So I'm talking about a potato, not a potato chip. I'm talking, or a French fry. I'm talking like that. They're high in water, fiber, vitamins, nutrients. They're low in calories, and calorie density. They are like fresh fruits and vegetables and starchy vegetables, whole grains and legumes. These are the carbohydrates I'm talking about. They provide sources of vitamins, carotenoids, phytochemicals, magnesium, potassium, B vitamins, trace minerals, energy, and prebiotics. Wait, what's prebiotic? Wait, anybody ever heard of a prebiotic? We've all heard of probiotics, right? Because they have that little Culturelle commercial all the time. Probiotics are the bacteria that we can add to our diet or supplements, and they're these little organisms to help our gut bacteria thrive, and it's like the symbiotic relationship with us and our gut bacteria. Well, prebiotics are the fibers that we feed our bacteria in our gut. It's what our gut eats, basically. So when we eat prebiotics, we are feeding our healthy bacteria in our gut. So carbohydrates, an average intake of unrefined whole carbs, which what we're supposed to be eating, is less than 1 serving a day. And I go through diet evaluations with people on a daily basis, and I think this is totally true, that people eat less than 1 serving of real whole carbs. Most of what they eat is junk carbs, the donuts and the Snackwell cookies and the toaster strudel and the French fries and stuff like that, the pretzels and crackers, white flour. So those are the refined carbs. The evils of refining: they take out the water, they eliminate the fiber, and they eliminate the nutrients. And they might sprinkle a little bit of nutrients back in just to make it look a little bit healthier. But you can't take a bad thing, put some vitamins on it, and healthify it. So there's an inverse relationship between fiber intake and cardiovascular disease and stroke. The more fiber, the less disease. For every 10 grams of fiber over the recommended amount, there was a 12% fatal and 10% non-fatal reduction in cardiac events. That's huge. That's better than a lot of our medications. If we could just increase our fiber intake with whole plant foods, we could really reduce the amount of money that we spend on healthcare. So carbohydrates are fiber, sugar, and starches. On your nutrition label, they're broken down. You'll see the amount of fiber and you'll see the amount of sugar. The new food labels also give you the added sugar, which I think is a nice thing, because before you didn't know if your toaster strudel sugar was from the real whole fruit that it advertises on the front of the label, or if that was added sugar. But now we can tell. They can't be fooling us now. Carbohydrates. So when you're looking at the ingredient list, you want to see the word whole or rolled or stone ground or cracked. That means the product is the whole grain. Even if it's ground up, it's still all of the pieces parts are there. You want to avoid something that just says wheat or white or durum or semolina or bleached or unbleached or enriched. If it says enriched, that's a clue that they took something out of it and they had to add it back. Also, you want to choose grains that are in the most whole form. So you don't want to just buy oat flour. What I usually do is buy old-fashioned and steel cut and some oat groats, but I never buy oat flour or instant or quick. If I need something like oat flour, I'll just put it in the blender and whip it up a little bit, and then I'll use it right away, but I don't store it. The more things stay on the shelf, the more the nutrients dissipate. Sugar, we need a certain amount of sugar in our diet. It's the primary fuel of our brain, but guess what? It comes naturally in our food, and carbohydrates break down into sugars so that we can use them. So we want to limit added sugars though. And if they're on the list of the ingredient list, you want to avoid things that have a lot of ingredients if they're the first 3 ingredients on the list. And a lot of children's cereals, it's up there really, really high. So just beware. And like I said before, added sugars are now on the label. The World Health Organization and the American Heart Association recommends no more than 100 calories a day of sugar, added sugar, per day for women, and 150 calories for men. That's 6 teaspoons for women and 9 teaspoons for men a day. Sugar by any other name is still sugar. Brown sugar, corn sweetener, corn syrup, fruit concentrates, high fructose corn syrup, honey, invert sugar, raw sugar, whatever, all those other sugar molecules ending in ose and syrups. All of those are added sugar. Sugar actually can act like a drug. It can stimulate the part of our brain just like opiates can. Sugar can be very, very addictive. Don't believe me? Just look at try to take people's pop away. Like I said, I do nutrition counseling, and you want to take people's pop away and they are going to go through withdrawals. Like, no, I can't do that. I can't take my pop away. I need that. Look at the calories from sugar. A 12-ounce pop is 150 calories, 10 teaspoons of sugar. So that's like, for a man, that's more than what that's what you're supposed to have for the day. So that's your dessert. If you want to have your pop, that's your dessert for the day. If you're a female, that's your over budget. And if you're on the Esselstyn diet, you're on over budget because you can only have about 100 calories from sugar. A fancy schmancy drink, right? Look at the added sugar, 32 grams of added sugar, 128 calories from added sugar, just in this one drink. Nutella, 2 tablespoons of added sugar, but yet it's advertised like it's a health food. Like a good mom would never send her children off to school with you know, a candy bar and a thing of pop, right? But we can do Nutella because it's somehow healthy, right? It kind of reminds me of the advertisement when the physicians used to recommend smoking. This is actually a real advertisement. So, fast food. The fast food guys telling the smoker, don't you know those things are bad for you? Well, fast food, it's the new smoking. And artificial sweeteners. So what they do is they encourage your craving for sugar dependence. So artificial sweeteners still make you crave that taste. So if you have to have your Diet Coke or whatever that artificial sweetener is, you still crave that sweetener. And so you don't down-regulate your taste buds to taste the natural sweetness in fruit and real whole foods. So unsweetening the world's diet may be the key to reversing the obesity epidemic. So let's review. Never believe anything you read on the front of the label because we know they're just trying to sell you something, right? Always check the nutrition facts. Calories from fat, less than 20% of the calories should be coming from fat. Sodium ratio about 1:1. Always check your ingredients. Avoid bad fats. Limit your sugars to less than 5% of your total calories a day, which is about 100 calories, especially if it's on the list and it's in the first 3 ingredients, probably not a good idea, and choose whole grains. So let's look at a label and see if it's good. So let's look at the calories. We have 110 calories, so we're allowed to have, what, 22 calories from fat? Well, it's close, right? Especially if we don't have any, you know, or limiting the rest of the day. So that's close. So we're kind of going to give that there. Saturated fat, we didn't talk too much about that, but kind of high in saturated fat. Sodium, 70 milligrams, so it's less than 110, so yay for that. So really, that, it meets our criteria so far, but let's look at the ingredients. Sugar, fructose, sugar dextrose, partially hydrogenated palm kernel oil, coconut oil, corn syrup, and some dextrose. I wonder what this is. Does it sound good? It's that protein bar that helps us stay on track. That's supposed to be healthy for us. Back when they first came out with vitamins, they used to add a little bit of vitamins to donuts, and then they touted them as a health food. Remember, you cannot take a junk food and healthify it by adding a little bit of vitamins. It does not work that way. So what can we do better? What about carrots and hummus, the lowly carrots and hummus? Let's do a little nutrition investigation, shall we? Let's check the Special K bar which is only 27 grams or 1 ounce. Like, that's going to make me full. It's not going to make me full. I have to eat way more than that. It's about 110 calories, whereas if we do 6 tablespoons of hummus and a cup of carrots, is that going to make you full for a snack? It's going to make me full. I'm going to feel satisfied. I'm going to be doing a lot of chewing and crunching, and it's going to make me full. Calories from fat on my hummus, hardly any. 27 calories from fat on the chewy granola bar. What about our sodium? 85 milligrams versus it's kind of high in sodium for the hummus, but if you make it yourself, you can make it for less. Look at the fiber. 6 grams of fiber for your hummus and carrots. And there's only 4 in the other bar. And I believe that was one of the little added perks on the front of the label, 4 grams of fiber, like that's a lot or something. But you get more by eating the whole food. Protein. I believe that was the main headline of that advertisement. That had a bunch of protein in there. Well, there's how much protein in the nutrition bar? How much protein is in there? There is 4 grams of protein. 4 grams. Got a spelling error. Oops. Whereas your protein in hummus has over 7 grams. Oh my goodness. Who knew? The lowly hummus and carrots could beat the Special K protein bar and make you more full. As for beverages, have water be your beverage of choice. If you don't like plain old water, mix it up with some tea. Green tea particularly is good for you. It has a lot of antioxidants. I like sticking some fresh ginger in there, maybe some anise or some cinnamon as well. If you like coffee or decaf coffee, almond milk, soy milk, or if you like a little bit of sweetener, a tiny bit of stevia is a good idea. Or the LaCroix, they have like bubbly flavored things with no sugar whatsoever. You can make your own teas for iced tea, or your flavored waters. I know Altman has flavored waters now that you can, well, they used to, I think before COVID, I think they took that away. They were having these canisters with different flavors of the day. They would be like strawberry, basil, or something yummy like that. It was really, really good. So which is better? Do one more little quiz. I want you to figure out by just looking at the nutrient label, which one is better, the one on your left or your one on your right. So calories, they have about the same amount of calories. Calories from fat, 35 on the left, 9 on the right. They both meet the qualifications. Sodium, they're both good with sodium, under a 1-to-1 ratio. So they both have, one has pretty much protein, the other one doesn't have very much protein. Sugars, the one on the left 15 grams and the one on the right 44. So I wonder which one is better. It's kind of confusing just looking at the nutrition label, especially when you look at it this way. Wow, the one on the right looks terrible with all that sugar, awful. Ooh, wait, now which one's better? The one that had all that sugar are apples. So that sugar is naturally occurring, so it doesn't count. So let's look on the left-hand side. The first ingredient is corn syrup. Then milk, then oil. I wonder what this is. Breakfast essentials. These things drive me crazy. What does essential mean? You have to have it to live. Right? That's what essential means. It says breakfast essentials. So that looks like I got to have it, right? If I'm a good mom, I'm going to give my kid that instead of like donut for breakfast, right? Before they go to school, they have to have something nutritious that has protein and calcium and all kinds of good stuff there. But it's not whole food. We saw the ingredients. It's just a bunch of junk with vitamins sprinkled in it. Remember the donut? You can't take junk food and sprinkle vitamins and healthify it. It does not a health food make. There's all different kinds of these breakfast essentials. There's all different kinds of these supplements and nutrition shakes, right? Well, let's look at the nutrient of the lowly apple that we didn't see on the label. There are hundreds, possibly thousands of phytonutrients all working together in that apple. So even though the vitamin C content didn't look very impressive, so some of the other things weren't impressive, there's so many more things in that apple that together work to help it be more of an antioxidant and a whole food. Whereas our vitamin only has a few different ingredients to it or different types of nutrients. And what's that setting our taste buds up for? If we're doing our shakes, our protein shakes and our breakfast essential shakes, what are we tasting? We're tasting sweet stuff all the time. What do we know about sweet stuff? Especially kids, right? If we're giving that to kids starting young and they're used to drinking a shake all the time, what are they going to do when they go out? They're going to want one of these shakes, right? Hundreds of calories, lots of fat. I wonder if this has something to do with our obesity rate in America. We are now, we're teaching kids how to eat from young by this junk food, and we just keep eating it because we're addicted to it. So again, let's review. Eat real foods as close to nature as possible. No oil. Read the labels. You want to keep your total overall calories from fat 10%. Your protein from calories is about 10 to 15% of the calories from protein. 75 to 80% of the calories are from carbohydrates. Oh my goodness, but whole carbs, remember, there's a difference. And you want to keep your sodium low, 2,300 milligrams. So how much should you eat? Should you count? Am I supposed to count anything? No, you eat until you're full, until you're satisfied. If you eat real food, you'll naturally stop. Remember after Thanksgiving and you're really full and everybody's stuffed and you pass around the, I don't know, steamed broccoli and everybody says, no, 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 I'm full, I can't have any more. Or you pass around the apples and they're really pretty apples, they're really good ones. No, no, I'm full. But then you get the pie out, right? All of a sudden, everybody can now eat a piece of pie, right? If we stick to real whole foods, we will automatically self-regulate how many calories that we eat. Ever see any obese, I don't know, squirrels out there that are too fat to climb a tree? No, because they eat real whole food, right? In nature, things eat real food. When we start bringing them into the house, and we start giving them all kinds of their little treats, what happens? We have obese cats, we have obese dogs, we have other obese animals, just like us. So let's do a little quick test. I want you to look at one versus the other. They have about the same amount of calories. Figure out which one will fill you up and which one will give you most nutrition. First, we have about 100 calories worth of apple slices, 2 cups, or one eensy-weensy little muffin. Which one's going to fill you up? The apples. 3 cheese peanut butter crackers, which is half the package, not the entire package. Or 2 cups of cantaloupe. Cantaloupe, it's going to fill you up and give you more nutrition. 1 1/4 cup of blueberries, or 7 ounces of orange juice. Same amount of calories, but the whole fruit is going to fill you up. 7 cups of cucumbers. Now, I love cucumbers, but I don't know if I've ever eaten 7 whole cups in one sitting. Only 100 calories versus some chips, 3/4 cups of chips. I've totally eaten 3/4 cups of chips in one sitting. No problem with dip on it too, right? So I've eaten way more calories. So choose the healthier foods. Strawberries, 2 cups of strawberries or 3/8 cup of non-premium ice cream. Strawberries are going to fill you up. 2 cups of carrots or only an ounce of pretzels. The carrots. So both of these have about 260 calories on each plate. Which one is going to fill you up? The whole food. So the choice is yours. Every day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and in between, you have a choice. Are you going to choose the processed foods or that are not giving you the nutrition that you need for your health, or are you going to choose real whole foods?